What's good, everybody? This episode of the podcast is sponsored by DistroKid. They are the go-to for digital music distribution and the easiest way for musicians to get their music onto Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, TikTok, YouTube, and more. They offer unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of their earnings, getting your music onto platforms and into stores 10 to 20 times faster than any other distributor. They help with cover song clearance, automatic splits, and they offer all kinds of tools and templates to help you get the most visibility for your releases. I dig this company and appreciate their business model that offers more features and tools than any other distributor while doing it at the most affordable price for solo artists, bands, DJs, studio artists, and any other creators that are making music or producing music in their home, and they offer label services as well. They've got 3 different tiers that they offer to creators that start as low as $22.99 a year. That's just $1.92 a month. And even their top tier is only $7.50 per month. And the best part about DistroKid sponsoring the podcast is they are offering Dan Cable Presents listeners 30% off their first year of service with DistroKid, making their affordable prices even cheaper for you. I will put that discount link in the episode notes. It will also be in my Instagram bio. Big shout out to DistroKid for sponsoring this podcast for more than 3 years now. Much appreciated. Now let's get into the episode.
Look down at the
What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dan Cable Presents podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the program. Once again, if this is your first time listening, thanks for checking out the show. You can find fresh episodes coming at you on Tuesdays. And if you want to help support this thing in a free way, you can do so by clicking subscribe on iTunes, clicking write a review, giving the podcast 5 stars if you feel like it is deserving of so, and that will help propel this thing into the tops of those iTunes charts, giving it more visibility on the national and international levels, helping strangers find the podcast. Just a great way to contribute to the growth and sustainability of this thing. Appreciate the hell out of all the folks that have already taken the time to do so. If you're not listening on Apple, just hit like, follow, subscribe wherever you are listening from. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe there. And hope everybody is doing well out there, coming off a pretty great weekend here in Portland, Oregon. My friend Isabeau put out had her album release show here in Portland this weekend, and she was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and we talked about that new heavyweight record. So it was just a beautiful celebration over there at the Showdown, and just had a really great crowd that came out, and the music all night was so well curated by Isabeau. It was really cool that she kind of got her I feel like her number 1 draft picks for to support that show. Ryan Oxford, who plays in her band, opened the night off with this beautiful duo set. I'd never gotten to see Ryan play music in person, but I love his music so much, and just his vision as a producer is always really impressive. So very cool to see him play a live set. And then Annie threw down this really beautiful instrumental set, and lots of cello and keys, and then Isabeau and the Noise Boys. Just an absolute crushing performance that I will remember for a long time. Definitely one of my favorite Portland shows of all time, and just know how much work they all put into making the record and then getting the live set dialed in for that release show. So it was cool that so many people came out to see it. Definitely a special night. Bunch of features that night, singing along with the band, which is just so rad. If you haven't checked out the Isabeau episode from a few weeks back, I would highly encourage you to. It's one of my favorite chats of the year. Just one of my favorite chats on this podcast in general, I think, was just a great conversation. And check out her heavyweight record. It's available wherever you listen to music, and you can also pre-order a vinyl copy as well. But this week on the podcast, we got my friend Rachel Bracker co-founder of Hungry Mantis, a film production company based here in Portland, Oregon. They specialize in VR film production, but they also take on traditional film projects as well. And I wanted to have Rachel on because she was the editor and took on some other roles on the Tuna Boy pilot episode. And I really enjoyed getting to know her through that process, and just really grateful that she was interested in jumping in the mix on this project, and just kind of taking the reins on the editing, and just really applied a lot of her ideas and this great vision for how to bring it all together. And yeah, she just crushed it, and it was cool to have her on the podcast and just kind of get to hear how she cut her teeth in the film industry and developed her vision, and how that has evolved over time, and her specific interest in editing and VR. And we also geek out on the Tuna Boy pilot episode quite a bit during the chat. So we mentioned Mel quite a bit. That is Chef Mel, the owner of Sandwich, where we filmed the first Tuna Boy episode, and she will definitely be on the podcast in the near future. But just really love this chat with Rachel. It was a lot of fun to get to know her story more, and it's just been so rad making friends with her this year, and appreciate her all of her contributions towards making that initial Tuna Boy episode. It was just an absolute blast. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's available on the Primetime Cable YouTube channel, which is the same YouTube channel that hosts this podcast, and it's only 10 minutes, so it doesn't take up too much of your time, and would love to hear your thoughts on it. And I will put all the links for Rachel and Hungry Mantis in the episode notes, so you can keep up with her, and maybe inquire about a VR project or some other film project with Hungry Mantis. If you have any questions, you can hit them up. And just a big thank you for her taking the time to jump on the mics with me. And also big shout out to our mutual friend and Rachel's business partner, Forrest Brennan, who is the reason I know Rachel, and a dude that has been a friend now for, I guess, like a decade, or it feels like it's getting close to the better part of a decade. And just an inspiring dude, Forrest Brennan, who did a lot of work on the Tuna Boy episode as well. It's as much as a director as I was on it, and he jumped in the water with me. When we talk about filming at the lake, he was the guy at the bottom of the lake with the camera in the water, and yeah, it's just always so much fun, and a special thing to get to work with Forrest. So thank you, Forrest, for introducing me to Rachel and being such a great dude. And this is episode 434 of the podcast with Rachel Bracker. Now let's do the damn thing.
All right. Well, if you feel good, we can do the thing.
Let's do the thing.
All right. I'm excited to have you here and on the mics.
Yeah, this is a wonderful opportunity, and what a beautiful studio. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just excited to hear about your journey in film, up to this point.
It's been quite the journey.
It is not my world, really, the film world. So we'll see if I can figure out how to ask compelling enough questions to make this a good conversation. It will not be on you if it is not.
Listen, I think the film world is increasingly a world that you're a part of with Tuna Boy.
Trying to be.
With this podcast. Yeah. So I think you're going to ask all the right questions.
Well, first off, thank you for all of your work on the Tuna Boy episode.
Oh my gosh.
I have gushed about you before, but I definitely feel like you are the one who really brought the thing together and
Aww.
gave it the vision that it lacked maybe in some ways.
That is too kind of you to say. I really appreciate
It's true.
I really appreciate the compliments, because Listen, when Forrest told me that you had this alter ego named Tuna Boy, I was immediately like, what? Cool. And then I think I was like, and who's Tuna Girl?
Yes. I remember him asking me that. He's like, Rachel was mentioning something about a tuna girl, and maybe that would be helpful to the franchise.
This is just sort of like the Marvel Universe mind of, oh, let's expand. But no, I was really excited when he told me about what you were up to. And then I saw the footage and
Yeah.
I was like laughing my pants off. I was just like, who is this Mel? And the moment when my favorite part, I mean, there's so many favorite parts in the footage that I have, but that I really enjoy. But I just loved when you were like, well, you got to be a bit of, wait, how did you say it? It's like, you got to root for the underdog if you're a
Yes.
Cubs fan.
Yes.
And she was like, fuck you. And you're like, no, wait, hold on. And you lift up your pants and you show off your tattoo.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. That was just awesome. So I think like, as soon as I saw the footage, I was just like, oh, please, can I edit this? This is so wonderful. So I was just really happy to get to be a part of, it was really awesome. Like, you and Forrest and Jim and Nick and then me and Mel, and like coming together in a group of people and just making something together that you're excited about is really special,
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling some people about that recently, just as far as things I've worked on as of late. I don't think I've had that much fun like making something in a really long time. Like, this is always fun to do this and jump on the mics with people and figure out how to produce an episode of the thing, but it's just like very DIY, and it's all me, and
It's solo.
like I kind of have control over the whole thing. So it was like really amazing for me personally to like go do this thing where I could just trust the people around me that have like more knowledge of like what we actually need to make the thing happen, and just like show up and just hear everybody's ideas and just kind of like go for it and have that collaborative experience is so much different than doing the solo thing, which I also appreciate, but there is like definitely a different energy, I think, that like comes out of collaboration when there's good chemistry.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's actually something like thinking about where I started working in video production and where I am today. That's the aspect I'm the most happy and grateful for. And I think it's the part of the process that I kind of missed when I first started, because you have to be a real self-starter and do a lot of things, not necessarily by yourself, but you have to really like be able to do lots of different aspects of video production if you want to get into it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a luxury to be on an awesome team. Like, if you're going to be on a team with great creatives, you probably had to work super hard to get that spot, to be able to be in that position, to make something cool. And like, if you're getting hired to do it for a commercial or something like that, right? But then if that's the case, of course, there's going to be some pressure about time and money and delivering.
Yeah.
And so when you can get people together because we want to make something and we all find it enriching and gratifying and fun, I just think that's kind of rare to happen. And I'm also really glad that like each one of us in the Tuna Boy crew, it's like we trust each other, and everybody brings their own background to it. But I feel like you give us a good directorial, like you show us the way of like how it should be, what your vision is. It's very clear for us. So it makes it easy for us to then come in and be like, okay, cool. This is how I'm gonna do this editing work then, So I just really enjoy the process, and I'm so proud of what we did for episode 1, that it's like,
Absolutely.
we got to get the magic back together for episode 2. And each one's going to be its own adventure too, because it is so dependent on the subject of the episode, right? And
Right.
like, Yeah.
Like finding the story.
Finding that story. And how much do we find in the moment that we're filming, and maybe are there things we discover when we look at the footage after the fact that we then want to like, oh wait, could we go back and do a little bit more or add to it, which we kind of did with episode 1 in terms of like some voiceover elements, obviously going out to the lake and filming those amazing I mean, like you jumped in like a tuna.
Forrest jumped in with me.
Yes.
You know.
Oh my God, that was so fun.
Yeah.
The cutoff shorts.
Yeah, I just like didn't really even think so much about like, oh, what is the, like going into it, I wasn't like, oh, what is the story here necessarily?
Yeah.
Like not really, just being ignorant to that kind of situation of just like, oh yeah, like you really need to like zero in on something. Like it's not so much, because I don't know, I kind of like went into that situation first of all like not really knowing what was going to happen that day,
When you were filming with Mel.
Yeah, which was like really exciting.
Yeah.
And very fun. But I didn't know how like hands-on she was gonna like let us be. I didn't know that she was gonna like actually let me make the tuna with them or whatever, but I kind of like prepared in a similar way to doing one of these conversations, and I was kind of like, well, if I have good questions, that will help, which I think it like ultimately did in some ways.
Yes.
But now knowing, like going into like doing a second one and just like thinking about like, how do we bring the story out of this, or like what is the story here, is so much different than like having these types of conversations.
It is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of like you prepare and prepare and prepare, and you did prepare for Mel, but then it was also sort of like, well, what is going to present itself while we're here? You had to be open to that, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you were open to her suggestions of like, you're going to make your own tuna sandwich here. The fact that you were like, oh yeah, let's do it, I think is really important too. And you'll get like in the future, if a subject is waiting for you to give them direction, that's where it's like, oh, okay, let's think about, all right, how do we want this to go? Do we want to see the process of making the tuna sandwich, which is always a great thing to focus on, because inevitably that brings up like, you know, for our next episode, it's like maybe more about the bread and that whole process. But yeah, that's, oh my God, that's the crazy thing about filmmaking is like, you have a crew of people, you kind of need to be prepared and plan, but if you're not sensitive to what's actually happening, what you're capturing, you're going to miss the magic. So you have to be flexible too. So very much like a conversation in an interview, you kind of go where maybe the story's interesting, but you also have this crew of people there who are like, oh wait, what? You know, we got to get the lighting right. And I hear a hum in the kitchen. Nope, we got to redo that. A plane flew over and ruined that. So it's not as nimble as just well, it can be a little challenging to get something authentic. But thankfully, like, you know, 2024, almost 2025, like the tools and the gear that we have, it's better than ever to be able to capture stuff authentically. I think smaller, like you don't need a huge footprint of 10 people. You could really have a crew as small as ours go in and capture something that looks really beautiful. And I do think that audiences, viewers, I think they want to see something real and less produced. I mean, that's really not based on any data. It's just my own bias of like, when I watch things on YouTube, I much prefer something authentic and maybe a little camera shake than something that's like, oh, there's so many like glamour shots. I just want to like be with the people in the video and feel the realness of it.
Yeah, when it's like not feeling so robotic in some way.
Yeah, which is sad because like I also want to acknowledge that if you're on camera, you want to put your best foot forward. You don't necessarily want to be too off the cuff. It can be scary. So it takes a lot of like powerful vulnerability for someone to be a host like you are and be authentic and real and not be scripted. I think that's what people want to see. So, and that was something I was really drawn to as well about Tuna Boy is like, you're a great host. You have great charisma
Thanks.
without being like just sort of like me, you know, like some some on-camera personalities can be.
I bet some other people would say otherwise.
Really? Oh, the haters.
No, it was, yeah, I definitely, I felt some nerves that I hadn't felt. That's for
Really?
sure. Like
Oh.
as soon as like we started like
Oh, with the
actually
cameras.
rolling and everything, and I was just like, oh shit, like how do I bring the thing out of Mel in this situation, or like my subject in this situation, and like
Yeah.
look like I'm in control of the thing in some way, you know?
Interesting. Oh, very interesting.
I think I was able to like shake it like after a few minutes,
Yeah.
you know, but there was like some elements of like maybe just like asking unnecessary questions, like, I mean, but also it's nice, like one of the things that I've like grown to love about like these film projects, and I've really only worked on like this Tuna Boy pilot, and I worked on another short film on a band that Forrest and I made a long time ago, and like have done some like on-camera interviews, is like I love that there is the power of editing and
Yeah.
like reshooting if need be. Like
If need be.
I think that is so cool to me, that all of the magic doesn't necessarily have to like get nailed at
Not
the shooting,
necessarily.
you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
or not all of the elements have to, you know, obviously like we needed to get whatever we got that day, because that was like our one day to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's like so much time to go back and like do the overdubs of the narration to like tie things together, or like shooting these other shots to like help it come together. And
Exactly.
those things are like
Yeah.
magic to me.
That's what's super fun about editing. That's what I love about editing. Like, you do get to add in other elements that just sort of emphasize what was great about what was captured. That's sort of like the meat of the episode.
Yeah.
And, you know, an editor, they can't, it's like, what is it, like blood from a stone, you know, like you can't draw out more than is there.
Yeah.
People will feel that too. I mean, actually, that's sort of like the essence of crappy reality TV, is when there's like not enough good stuff that they keep sort of like rehashing and oh, commercial break, and like, and let's repeat it. It's almost like Dora the Explorer. Like, we have to say it 3 times before they'll understand. It's just insulting to the intelligence of the viewer. So, like, well, I should just back up and say editing is my favorite thing.
Okay.
I love editing. So it's fun to talk about like what's exciting about editing. And I think, you know, an editor can only do what they can do because of all the hard work that everyone else has put into getting that footage. And of course, they might think of ideas to add to it as we did, but like, the specialty, the craft, the skill of the filmmakers, the people on camera, the producers, the pre-production work, like that is all super necessary.
Yeah.
And you all captured amazing magic with Mel. And there were so many things that, oh man, I just love when Treyfin Tuna's delivery person comes in.
That was insane.
Oh my God.
Just like no one planned for that.
No.
Mel wasn't like, hey, if we film at this time, the delivery might come in.
Of the tuna.
No mention was ever made. I had no idea who this woman is. It just like walks into the shot, and Mel's like, hey, that's Treyfin Tuna.
We just did a
The
whole
tuna's
episode
here."
about that
Yeah.
shit.
Just amazing.
And then you have this look on your face of pure delight, like, oh, that's the tuna. The tuna's here.
Yeah.
So, like, that is magic. And there were many, many things like that that you all captured that day. And that's why I was so excited about working on the episode. I certainly wouldn't have been excited if, like, you know, you guys didn't film anything interesting. It's like, I
Yeah.
can't edit. There's only so much I can do with this. But no, you got so many good moments like that. Even Mel interacting with some of the customers, which I'm not sure like how prominently that feels in the episode for viewers, but for me, like those little moments of her being like, yeah, everyone is welcome here, except that person wearing that funny sweatshirt. And
Yeah.
like, you can't see, but they're wearing some kind of jersey.
Yeah, it's like a Philadelphia Eagles sweatshirt, and she's just like such a big Bears fan and just like rides so hard that she's gonna like give anybody shit that isn't repping like the Cubs or the Bears.
God, it's so great.
Or something Chicago, which is
We're in Portland.
yeah, no, it's amazing. It's great.
It is great. God, I love Mel. I love Sandwich. Like,
Shout out to Sandwich.
Shout out to Sandwich. Oh my God, the sandwiches there. I'm all over the place with what I'm talking about, but my God, the sandwich I had there was an epiphany of perfection. Like everything you talk about in the episode that she talks about being really intentional, you can taste it. That sandwich,
sure.
like top to bottom, is like, wow, that was really well thought out.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's like also why it was rad to film there, you know?
Because
Like
it's good food.
to like pick a place that I'm like actually passionate about.
Yeah.
Like makes
That's a must.
so much easier.
Yeah.
You know? Like I haven't necessarily been thrown into any situation where I've had to like be the person on camera faking my way
That would be
through
hard.
something.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm sure there's ways to like be polite or like find ways to still like figure out what the story is in something like that. But it's like after being gone for almost 2 months on tour, I flew in and the first place I went to was to go get a sandwich over at Sandwich.
Oh my gosh.
Because I just like had, it was funny, like after touring around for the last couple of months, I just like had so many mediocre sandwiches in other places that like I was just thrown back into Sandwich. Like I had to go over there and
Oh
like
my God.
get
I
something
understand
to
that.
just like cleanse my palate of all the mediocre
sandwiches.
sandwiches I had along the way.
We're so lucky living in Portland.
Absolutely.
We have
It's
awesome
incredible.
food here.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I really need to get out and eat more delicious food in Portland. Like, I mean, I'm obsessed with Google Maps and like making lists of places I want to go.
Yeah.
And Sebastiano's is definitely on that list to just go there more. Oh,
That breakfast sandwich we got that day,
it was so good.
crazy.
When I bit into the sandwich, the like runny yolk
Yes.
exploded.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
It got all over.
All over your notes and
Yeah,
shit.
I brought a notebook. I brought my planner, and like the yolk got into the spiral binding of the planner, and it's been like still to this day when I open it, a little bit of dried egg yolk. It's like impossible to clean it out all the way, but it was just, that's a little souvenir from Sebastian.
Incredible.
And the marmalita that they gave me.
Yes.
Oh my God, which is so good. Sebastian, so I think a lot about, the pilot episode, pure magic, amazing. And, as a creative person, we can be so hard on ourselves, like, okay, but what about the next one?
Yeah.
How's that next one going to be? And I think there's a little bit of like realization, like, well, it will be different. It won't have Mel in it.
No.
So it will be different, but that's going to be the nature of all the episodes that we do. They're going to be very much like, at least I hope they feel like a portrait of what it's like for you to visit a place and a place that makes amazing food that you appreciate and what's unique about that restaurant or that sandwich shop.
Yeah.
It needs to be, and Sebastiano's is going to feel really different. It's a different vibe there, and I'm excited for it. And I think we'll, as a team, will have to kind of like sort of grow along the way to learn. Like each episode's going to be its own set of, okay, so maybe for Sebastiano's, we come in with a few ideas for some, I don't know, but we'll just find out when we're there too, in some ways, right? Like you can plan and plan and plan, and that's what we got to do. It's always good to be prepared, but then just go where the magic is too. Be nimble.
Yeah.
In the moment.
Hope some things happen.
Yeah, and then know that it will be edited.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I think that'll be helpful. Like even me knowing of like, okay,
you're in safe hands.
Or if if something needs to be like reshot,
we
can you say that again? Like over here or something.
Right, because it was super loud over there.
Yeah, or whatever. Like you know, and also it's just like I think it'll be nice having one under the belt and also like you and I going there already.
Yeah,
to
doing the
kind of like
pre-production part.
Yeah.
And Jim has seen it and knows. When we were talking the other day, he was like, yeah, okay, I got to think about just sort of like how much space I take up
Yeah.
with my gear because of the, proximity to just the space that we have available to work in the kitchen. This is just the best kind of exercise you can have as a filmmaker. Just like going to new places and trying to figure out the best way to film there. It's really fun. We're like our own little Food Network here.
We're trying to be.
Yeah. Which is super awesome. And like, why not, because we all enjoy it. Oh, and like sort of hearkening back to what you said earlier about, as a host, you appreciate when you're super enthusiastic about what you get to talk about in the episode. I hope it's always that way. Cause like, if we get to pick where we go and what we're filming, you should always be like super excited about what that is. And maybe in the future, who knows, there might be something where it's like, well, maybe it's like a sponsor thing and you have to do it, and hopefully you can find like one piece that excites you. But
I hope those are problems that we stumble upon.
what wonderful what wonderful future problems to have.
Rachel, take me back to like, what are your early beginnings in your interest in film? Like, were you always a pretty creative kid growing up?
Oh, well, my early interest in film, let's see. I think I liked to think I was creative, but I was also kind of like scared to get my hands on the equipment for the longest time. I felt a bit intimidated about, how do you film something and how do you edit it? And it wasn't really till high school that I had the ability to friends had cameras, and then in the library we could use, what did we use? Was it iMovie? I don't even know.
Are you doing like film production classes in high school, or
like Spanish class, make a short video that like totally random things in high school? Those were those moments though, those light bulb moments where I had so much fun putting together whatever the skit was. I mean, it was really like, it was like AP US history, make a random video about the project that you're presenting, or Spanish class. Like, those are probably my first times getting to do anything with video. That I realized, like, God, this editing stuff is so fun because you really get to tell a story, and then everyone in the class is going to watch that. How awesome is that? That's that instant gratification.
Yeah.
And I think I was very shy and nervous, and I loved the idea of like getting to work on something that everyone is, that awful sort of like combination of being shy but needing attention. So it was like, oh, this is, I want to be part of making stuff. And I remember there was a kid in my school named Omid, and Omid was really hands-on with video production for being in high school. And oh my God, what year was that? 2007 or something like that. I think he was using a camera that had those mini DV tapes. I never actually worked with those, but I remember being like, so like we had a pep rally and Omid made a video that the whole school watched, and it was so funny and so cool. And like, I worked up the courage to ask him, like, how did you do that? And he started explaining to me, and I was like, oh God, that sounds really difficult. How will I ever? So I wouldn't say that I was always like with the camera in my hand, not at all. Actually the opposite. But I was always kind of like, oh, I wish I could do that. And then in college, I studied other things. But when I was sort of in the midst of the hard times of studying things like Japanese, like I would feel like, oh man, like am I really passionate about this or what? And so I remembering, I think it was a business class where I was like, we read this book, Strength Finder 2.0. And the whole concept of that book was, instead of working on your weaknesses and trying to be well-rounded, play to your strengths.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I don't even know if I have a strength in anything to do with video, but I have this strong desire to be part of it, and I'm interested in it. So I got a little camera, and I figured out how to edit with Final Cut. And that's sort of an abbreviation of like sitting next to friends in the cinema studies computer lab and learning from them how to edit. Basically, like, I just did whatever I could to get my hands on what I needed to make anything. And after that, I was just totally hooked, and I wanted to film and I wanted to edit, and I would just look for like any excuse to be part of a project. But because I didn't have a lot of experience, I don't think anybody really wanted to do any projects with me. So I was sort of like, oh, like, I wish I was cool. I wish like, you know, I would be part of that group. Like they're making a really funny sci-fi sketch, but they don't want me. Like I don't have any editing experience. So I had to do a lot of things sort of DIY. And then I decided to take like an actual video editing class in the journalism program at University of Oregon, where I was studying. And the professor was Kevin May, and he was so good. He was just very welcoming to everyone in the class. We got into the weeds of advanced editing techniques. I remember being like, I'm not exactly excited about this aspect of editing, but it's good to know the software. And then somebody else, not me, raised their hand in class and was like, hey, Professor May, are there any opportunities for internships where we can learn more about video production? And he wrote the names of like a couple local video production companies in Eugene, Oregon. He's like, maybe reach out here. So I took notes of that. And then months later, I was like, oh man, I'm so tired of all my rinky-dink DIY projects. I'm never going to get better if I don't get some real experience with professionals. So I reached out to one of those companies, and they invited me in for an interview, and I ended up getting an internship at this place that did two things. They did weddings, and then they did videos for the NRA.
Nice.
Yeah. They were so great. Like, I don't love the NRA.
But you love editing.
I loved the two Ryans. It was Ryan and Ryan.
Yeah.
They were the co-founders of this company.
Okay.
It was really two companies. And they had big dreams of like having a really, like, I don't think in their heart of hearts they wanted to do weddings forever. But it's a great way to build your business.
Yeah. I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It very much is. So they sort of had a great, man, those guys were so good to learn from because it was a small team. They were very, very, I just really couldn't have asked for a better introduction into like how to make a living doing video production than what I got working for those guys, because it's just those two. They know how to do everything. And then when they brought me in, they wanted me to learn a little bit of everything. And they really respected me and treated me kindly. And they also, I think, expected a lot of me. So it was really wonderful to have people handing you the camera and being like, all right, you're going to be assistant shooter for this project. I couldn't have been in a better spot. It was so important to just get that opportunity. And the NRA stuff. So the thing was like, they were really good at weddings, and they wanted to be like a video production company that didn't necessarily have to do weddings all the time. So they had a colleague who worked at the NRA, and the NRA was doing these stories like Patriot Profiles, and what was it called, like Life of Duty? I don't know. They had their whole like video series that then the Ryans would film and edit for them.
Okay.
And that was also, so like when you want to learn how to do something, you can't really be too picky about what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not conservative. Like I don't like guns. So editing some of that stuff really opened me up to like just other people's way of life and what's important to them. And I heard a lot of stories about what it was like to serve in Iraq from some of these Patriot Profiles.
Yeah.
There was one about a police officer in Eugene, and I think it was actually really good for me because like I think that definitely changed my life in a good way. And that's what's great about editing, all in all. It's just you get exposed to all these different stories, different people.
Yeah.
It really opens up your mind, and like I'm grateful for those experiences, but it sure was weird to be editing weddings and then it's like Kel-Tec rifles. Oh, there was one video about a charity event for wounded warriors. There's this nonprofit, Wounded Warriors, that is, I'm not at all well versed on what they do, but this particular video was about the special ops wounded warriors who have PTSD and like they need a lot of support, like getting back reintegrated into society after what they did. Anyway, there was some, I don't know if it was in Florida, but there was like some massive land that was overrun with wild boar. And these boar just needed to be killed, I guess. There were too many of them. So they organized this event where the special ops people could go in and kill the boar and get sort of, I think that was healing, like to go out and to do a mission.
Something purposeful, like, yeah.
It was so like, and it was sponsored by Coast Knives. So like that was a thing. And anyway, like I remember, you know, you're looking through the B-roll, which is all the visuals that will kind of help tell the story with the interviews. And there was this B-roll of dogs. So they're like stabbing the boars. And then the dogs come over and, you know, like I grew up with dogs. And when you play with a soft toy with dogs, they like grab it in their mouth and shake their head back and forth. And you just think, oh, they just love to play. But that's like a deep instinct dogs must have, because this dog like grabbed the boar and shook it around like they would a dog toy. And I was like, oh my God, this is like from their wolf ancestry. I'll never forget that image. It was pretty, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Dogs were, you know, like hunting dogs. This is what they're meant to do. That was kind of wild.
It seems pretty wild. It seems like a pretty stark contrast of weddings and NRA stuff. But also, I do think it's cool that you kind of had to, not only for your, like, you know, exposure maybe to stories that you would have never had. Yeah. But also to, like, still find a way to do a good job editing something that you're not, like, super interested in. Yeah.
And like, honor the content.
Yeah.
And honor.
Make it the best it can be. Mm-hmm. Honor the story.
Yeah. I had to do that. And that is really important for an editor. You don't want an editor who like comes in with their own idea of the way things should be too much. Like you need to honor what you have, I think. And well, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's sort of the transparency of some of the like, what would you call it? Code of conduct, or like the morality that I have around editing, because that it's a very powerful position if you think about it. Like you can, honestly, I can make anyone say anything if I want to. Just cover up the cut with some other footage. I mean, the way you can edit people's words. Yeah. Ooh, that's, so when someone says like they got a bad edit, it's really true. You can make someone look however you want as an editor. But it's not right. I don't think people should do that. I don't want to do that, and I don't do that.
Wait till you see what I do with this episode.
Oh my God. Let me say a few things like Trump.
I love the NRA. I fucking love the NRA. So inspiring to work with that organization.
Yeah, as long as I say enough words and there's enough space in between them, even if there's not, like
crazy.
You can fix. Yeah, you know, as an audio editor, you know all too well, and from editing these podcasts. So you don't want an editor who doesn't have a sense of morality. Yeah. Who's not ethical. And I think that was also something I learned as I got into filmmaking, was all the power I had, how I should think about ethics, how I should be respectful to my subjects. I don't think I ever went in with like a brazen attitude or anything like that, because that's not my nature. But I definitely, like, as time goes by, I just like appreciate more and more people's willingness. You know, if you work in nonfiction, if you do documentary stuff anyway, and that's really all I've ever done. I imagine people who work with actors have a really different perspective on this whole craft of filmmaking than I do. Because I work with people, real people with, you know, they're going to, not that actors aren't real people, but like the people that I'm filming, they're sharing their true story with me. And it's in my hands, and I want to protect that. And I don't want to misrepresent them. And I've had times where people will say things to me in the interview, And then later I edit it together and I show them and I'm like, hey, so here's how it's coming along. And I'm thinking of one person in particular. And this one person told me, oh gosh, I talked about something that I actually wish I didn't. And the reason is my family will watch this.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to be really hurtful if they hear me talking about that. And I just can't have that in the edit. And I was like, oh, yeah. And it's always stuff that's like really powerful.
Yes. That makes sense.
And then it's like, you sort of think to yourself, like, I respect that because I have a family too. And I wouldn't want to have something. Sometimes when you're just sitting down across from someone, you can be very rationally aware of what you're saying. But then you think about it later and you're like, oh my God, so many people might hear that. And yeah. I just don't want that. So even though maybe you could say, like, journalistically speaking, is it really right to shape an edit based on what your subject finds okay? Like, I really don't have any qualms about if I'm making a piece that's about somebody, like, I want them to like it and I want them to be proud of it. And I also want it to be truthful. And I just feel like it's a conversation. Like, we had a conversation about that. And I can be a little bit pushy in the sense of, like, I'm like, okay, I hear you. We're going to edit that piece out. But there was a larger story. She was talking about her family's background. She's talking about intergenerational trauma, and that there was an important message in that. So I was like, is there any way we can convey that without saying the specifics of what happened to your family?
Yeah.
And we found a way to do that she was okay with. And I think in the end, it was important. We needed to talk about that because it was part of her story, but there wasn't anything specific said and about her family per se, and it worked out. So sometimes with subjects, I just feel like as long as we can stay in a good conversation and there's that trust there that, first of all, I'm never going to publish it if you don't like it, but let's see, is there another way we can go about this without just completely, like, getting rid of it altogether? It can be tricky.
Finding a way to, like, respectfully push back against it a little bit and, like, letting them know what that part does for the context of the rest of the thing.
Yeah. And some people are just not going to be cool with that.
Yeah.
And this is what is challenging about working in nonfiction. But it's also what's so wonderful about working in nonfiction. It's all real.
Yeah.
So you have to, at the end of the day, working in video production is all about relationships. And the relationship you have with your subject is really crucial. And I don't want to get anything. I don't want to do anything that's like a surprise. Gotcha.
Yeah, not a gotcha thing.
I don't like that. And I don't think that's fair or respectful to your subject. So that's definitely something that I always carry with me. And I remember going to film festivals and seeing people in the Q&A who were like, oh God, this film I made that you all just watched, like, the subject in it hates it. And we're, like, currently in, like, a legal dispute about it. And it's like, oh my God, I would hate to be in that situation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even within these conversations, I've kind of always told people, I mean, I didn't give you some sort of PSA before we started recording, but if for some reason we had this conversation, you said something you weren't stoked about after, like, I wouldn't want that to be in there. Like, I want you to be excited about the conversation.
Well, thank you.
I think it'd be maybe different if I was, like, talking to a politician or something.
Totally different.
Yeah. But if I'm just bullshitting with you about, like, what your experience in film has been like in your craft, like, it's just like, and it's happened, like, very few times where maybe, like, someone has, like, shared a story and they were like, I'm not, like, too, I don't know if that needs to be in there.
Right. Like, I'm having second thoughts about that.
And I would say in the times that it has happened, which is maybe 0.5% out of the 400 plus episodes I've done, it's been, a story that's usually somebody talking about someone else.
Exactly.
Someone else is involved in this thing.
And then they're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would want that talked about. Totally.
Or if Mel had said something in that interview.
And she didn't want it in.
And it was just like, okay, cool.
Yeah, we will
like,
honor that. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, like, there were definitely some proprietary shots of ingredients.
Yeah.
That I remember later on, you communicated to me and Forrest communicated to me, like, let's not give away the secret recipe.
Yeah.
You
for
know?
Sure.
And so I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Easy enough.
Yeah.
Like, we don't
And that
wanna
wasn't
do
even
that.
like her request almost necessarily. you
Oh,
know?
really? I thought it was her request.
I don't know. Like there was probably like, she didn't necessarily want the recipe to be like
Yeah.
broadcasted.
Half a teaspoon of this.
You know?
Yeah.
But I would say for the most part, you know, you don't get a whole lot of that, but I would imagine you get more of it when you're like doing the types of things
Like you were saying, political
that
things.
you were doing.
Oh, that actually brings up something I wanted to share.
Rachel's running for mayor.
Yeah.
Rachel Bracker for mayor 2026.
But I have a lot of outstanding parking tickets, so hope that's not a problem.
Yeah, we're going to take those away. Don't even worry about that. I wouldn't pay those.
Those will all be resolved.
Yes.
So, okay, something that happened when I would say this was the first thing I ever directed.
Yeah.
I ran into a problem with a subject expecting a certain type of depiction and it not turning out that way. So I want to tell you about that because I think to this day it still bothers me and I don't really know. I have a lot of respect for journalists who have to, God, it's like, to be a good journalist, you need to get great subjects into the room with you and ask them important questions. And you don't want to like completely obliterate your ability to get those people in the room again later.
Yeah.
And so you want to ask the questions everyone wants to know the answer to, but usually like they don't want to answer those questions and they have a publicist and like, how do you navigate that? That's a tricky situation and you need to honor your journalistic ethics and you need to honor your audience. So I was working, when I was in grad school, I was studying multimedia journalism. I had been working in video production for several years and I was like, okay, let's learn the journalistic side of all of this. So I had an opportunity through the program to go to San Francisco for a summer and direct a series about women in tech. And we called it the 26%. To highlight the lack of gender parity in tech. Like there is not a 50-50 spread of men and women working in the tech industry in Silicon Valley in the United States. And why is this so? And also, why do we see like a lot of attrition, a lot of women leaving tech? This was in 2015. So there was a famous discrimination case brought forth by Ellen Powell. Oh, I might be saying her name incorrectly. That's embarrassing. Ellen Powell, I believe. So she was talking about discrimination she faced that she believed was because of her gender in like a tech investment firm. Anyhow, I went to go do an internship at Recode, which is a tech journalism outlet that was led by Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher. And Kara Swisher is an incredible tech journalist. And she, at the time, and even definitely still today, was very famous for asking people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg tough questions back when they were like untouchable and beloved. And she would she'd be like the only adult in the room who was like, is it really a good idea to move fast and break things?
Yeah.
Like she would question them. And anyhow, working for her was incredible. And so there was this series that they wanted me to direct and it would be multiple episodes and each episode would feature a different prominent woman in tech. And the very first person in the series, Leila Takayama, worked at Google and she is a robotics expert and incredible person. And even though I was directing the series, I had people that I was working with on the team who also were giving me direction about like, they knew what they wanted the series to be. And then I'm directing the implementation of that in a way, but also just like the video shoot itself. So anyhow, Leila Takayama's episode was the first one that came out. And I don't think she knew what the title of the series was going to be. And anyway, we got a message after it came out that she did not like being sort of the face of this series that is critical of the tech industry and the lack of representation of women in tech, because it kind of put her in the hot seat at her job at Google,
Yeah.
you know, almost like she's criticizing Google.
Yeah.
And I remember we got this email from, I think it's her publicist or maybe just someone who worked in PR for the robotics division. And yeah, they were unhappy with it. And one of my superiors at Recode was like, this is just part of it. Like, it's okay. Like, this is how this goes.
Yeah.
And he was very calm, and I really appreciate he helped me a lot to understand a lot of things while I was there. It truly was a learning opportunity for me. But I felt bad, you know? I felt bad that, like, oh shoot, like Layla's not happy? Or maybe Layla, maybe that's just the publicist's view, but either way, like, that sucked. And it made me feel less excited about sharing the work. But yeah, it was just sort of this conflict of like, we have a series we want to do. We want to represent it a certain way. Do the people who are in the series really know how we're going to be marketing it and pitching it? If anything, I think it was more like the headline that was bothersome. But in journalism, in today's day and age, like, if you don't have a headline that's extremely clickbait worthy, no one will look at it. So that's a whole other problem, because people don't read and they might not watch the full video and see the full context of, like, she loved her job and she felt supported. And I don't think that, so anyway, that's sort of a long way of saying, like, oh, it was challenging to be proud of something I had worked on and know that somebody who was in it, like, didn't love the way it was presented. And ever since then, I've been really worried. Like, I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
I want people to know and believe in, like, if I'm making a series, it's like, we need more gender parity in the tech industry, and this is a problem, and this is a problem. I would like them to know that that's the angle we're taking from the get-go.
Going into it and not surprising them with it later.
Yeah, because what if she suffered repercussions at work because of that? That's like the exact opposite of the goal of the series. You know, you don't want to, like, put people on the front lines and risk their jobs if that's not what they were signing up for.
For sure.
So I guess I have regrets about that, but also I was that was just part of the learning process at that time. But that's not how I conduct myself today. And I'm privileged to have a company where, like, I get to work with an amazing business partner and we get to make all the decisions about how we're going to present something. If it's like one of our creations, if we're making something for a client, then the client will, dictate how they want that. But we're not working in a very, it's not like working for Recode anymore. Like, if we do something that has journalistic merit to it, these days, it's like, it's usually not something that's too terribly controversial, I would say.
Yeah.
But if we ever want to wade into that territory, you do have to have a thick skin. And I think it's also good to be transparent with your subjects. So yeah, going forward, I would want to do that better.
So after you did the internship with the Ryans, doing the weddings and the NRA stuff, did that fully launch you into focusing on film, like, as your career goals? And, like, did you just, like, completely shift all of your education focus at that time?
Yeah, I went full in on that, and there was just no looking back. I knew I wanted to do what they did. Yeah. And if anything, I wanted to just keep working for them. So I got a job there, and I was an editor. That was my main thing, was editing for them.
But that was, like, always, like, I know you talked about earlier that you love editing.
Love editing.
That was, like, from the jump.
Yes.
You liked that aspect of it more than
filming
else. And
more than anything else. But I would film because I had to.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really have the luxury of just editing. But yeah, I edited for them for a while. And then I had to leave Eugene. I was just very stagnant in Eugene. I had to come to Portland and get more job opportunities. I couldn't stay in Eugene anymore. It was, like, bad.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and then my family moved to Oregon in 2002. So I had, like, the latter part of adolescence in Gresham.
Okay, so you went to like high school in Gresham.
Sam
Okay.
Barlow High School.
Okay.
Yes, that's where I met Omid, who
Okay.
was a great videographer and editor as well. And then went to University of Oregon. So I feel like an Oregonian in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you've been here a long time.
I've been here a while. Yeah. So I went to U of O for undergrad and grad. I did a lot at U of O. I'm actually about to do some new stuff with U of O that I'm excited about because they have an immersive media master's communication program. So like a grad level program for people who want to study communications, but want to know how to do communications in this new era of VR, AR, XR, all the R's, which is eventually an area that I got into 360 video production. So they have this program that's relatively new, and they asked me to be one of the mentors in the program, which I'm so excited about. And today I actually get to go to an open house at their new campus in Northeast Portland. University of Oregon used to have a campus in downtown Portland, like a satellite graduate school for architecture, for business, sports marketing and design, product design, and journalism and communications. And then I think like a year ago, they bought Concordia University, which is like a 100-year-old university in Northeast Portland. Concordia sold them the campus, and it's, oh my God, it's so beautiful up there. I'm so jealous of the students because like going to school in downtown Portland and Old Town Chinatown, we had a cool building for sure, but they have like a proper campus.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I'm really excited to be part of the mentorship network, and this is all the doings of Dr. Donna Davis. She is the director of the Immersive Media Communications Program, and she's actually someone that I met when I was studying multimedia journalism. She was the person who connected me with 360 Labs, which is where I got an internship to do 360 video production. So she's been like super pivotal in my career and development into like I went from doing regular standard video to doing this whole new category of video, 360 video.
Was 360 Labs where you met Forrest?
It is.
Okay.
We were both hired around the same time.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's where I met my current business partner. And it is all about relationships. Like every step of the way doing this kind of work, it's about the people you do it with and what you can learn from each other. And it's a lot of hard work. And my goodness, Forrest is the hardest worker I've ever met. And he is an amazing business partner. And there's nobody else I'd rather be in business with, and especially a business that combines all of this new technology, all of these VR headsets that we use to show our work, which is totally crazy. I mean, VR is, the moment I tried virtual reality, I was like, oh my God, this is the future. This is so stinking cool. I want to do, I love editing and I love video, but wow, these are videos that you really feel like you're there. How cool is that? That's incredible. And like the stuff that I love about editing, getting into somebody's inner world, like you can really do that with 360 video in a cool way. Like I can make you feel like you're right there sitting across from that person, or take you to interesting places that are important to them. You feel like you're going on this like Miss Frizzle Magic School Bus field trip with a story. It's so cool. So I'm not all about that in the sense that like I still really like normal video.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be important for humanity, but 360 is cool too. It's new. It's a new medium, all things considered. And I think it has an important place for where media is going.
In what sense do you feel like it's like, what is its importance?
So I think it's important to help people get exposed to new ideas or controversial ideas or inaccessible places or inaccessible people. It's so, I mean, they say like experience is the best teacher.
Yeah.
So it might be impossible for every single one of us to go to, I'm thinking of a very specific film right now. It's called JFK Memento. This film is by Targo, It's so good. Like, it takes you to where the assassination happened.
And this is a VR.
It's a VR experience.
Okay.
It's sort of like recreating this incredibly tragic, pivotal moment in history. Recreates it with archival photos, with 3D models, with 360 video. You go to where it happened. You see like the different vantage points that you would have seen if you were just there, like watching the motorcade, or if you were in the building where the shooter was.
Yeah.
You get to meet the woman who took a very famous photograph of the event, and you talk to her, and you're like in her living room. You get to meet a police officer who was involved in the case, and all this is to say, like, that completely changed my relationship to that historic event. Like, after I experienced that, I was like, oh, I feel like I know something about this in a way. It felt like I was there. And I have to say, after I experienced JFK Memento, I don't believe any of the conspiracy theories anymore, because I was there, you know? Like, I think all that stuff is really crazy, because I got to like hear from witnesses. It brought me closer to these events, and it kind of grounded me in some sense of reality.
Yeah.
Whereas like sometimes historical events can feel so far removed from who we are today. But anyway, I think one of the powers of virtual reality storytelling is just to bring people somewhere. Like, you really feel like mind, body, soul, like you're transported to wherever that place is. And it changes you, and it makes you think about it. I just can't go off the rails on a crazy conspiracy after I watched that.
Yeah.
It just feels like, oh man, this is a really like fucked up thing that happened, and it's terrible, but I just don't. Yeah. So I think for recreating historical events, very important. But also, like, there's other really, really amazing VR stories that just bring you, like, there's one VR film where well, it's not nonfiction, it's not a documentary, it's like you're sort of embodying someone else in the film. So that's what's cool about VR too, is it like gives you this empathy and this perspective into other people's way of life that I don't know if you could have it that way in any other type of media. So there's a lot to say about VR, but I like it for the truth-telling, like, authenticity of it. I think is really cool. And then on the total opposite end of that spectrum is like the absolutely fantastical, completely unrealistic things you can do in VR as well. Those are also cool. Oh, another really powerful VR film that I love that would be impossible for any of us to do at this stage and where we're at with space travel is like, you can go to the International Space Station and see the Earth from space and meet astronauts. There's an
crazy.
amazing documentary called Space Explorers.
Okay.
And that, it's just life-changing. It's so cool to be in the International Space Station.
Yeah.
And like you're sitting at the, the dinner table and like everything's floating. It's so cool.
I mean, it has inspired you and Forrest to like build a company, right?
It's true.
Like,
yeah.
Hungry Mantis is like its focus primarily.
That's our
on VR
niche
stuff.
Specialty offering, 360 video production. Yes. It's inspired us. Oh my God. And that's sort of the funny thing too, is like we love VR despite that it sometimes just doesn't love us back. It's very difficult to, it's like at least twice as hard to film and edit 360 video. Like maybe not for us because we're specialists in that area, but if you just like bare bones sort of compare traditional filmmaking to 360, there's just like so much more that goes into the 360 side because of the emerging tech nature of it all and having to make things for a virtual reality headset.
And it's like not just whatever's in front of you.
It's
like
all
you have
around
to account
you.
for everything.
You have to account for everything, yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a labor of love sometimes, I would say.
That editing process is completely different than doing like something more traditional.
It's got some similarities. You can use similar software.
Okay.
But I think the very nature of what you're editing is so different. Like if I was editing something about Mel that was filmed in 360, I probably wouldn't have that many different scenes. Like, I want you to feel like you're really there.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to do is like have really quick cuts that just, you know, like you need to like feel like you're in sandwich. You need to feel like you're sitting there. You need to feel like you're in the kitchen. You need to feel like you're really with Mel. So I think like the pacing of VR editing is different. The outcome is different. Like, you're still telling a story, but I just don't want to rush you through the magic of you getting to look around and look where you want to look. It's like theater, kind of. It's like a field trip. It's just a different experience for the viewer. So you have to respect that. And they need time to discover things the way they want to discover it. So yeah, it's not a frame that you can necessarily direct and choreograph exactly where someone's going to be looking.
Yeah.
So that is a big difference in the editing, I would say.
What do you feel like inspired you to start your own thing? You know?
Oh gosh.
Like what, was it important just like being around those other companies that you had the opportunity to work with and like see that
Yeah.
people have done this before?
100%. I think it's kind of, I've only ever worked on small teams. I don't know what it's like to work at a big company. So in some respects, it's just all that I know.
Yeah.
But also, like, it definitely demystifies the process when you see how hands-on being a business owner is. And then you think, okay, well, that's what that takes. I think if you're going to be working in video production, you just have to be a go-getter. You need to take initiative, and that's what a business owner does too. So it doesn't feel quite as intimidating on that level. But I would say, like, I really like being part of a team, and I didn't necessarily like want to, like, I really enjoyed working at 360 Labs where Forrest and I worked.
Yeah.
And I think it was just one of those circumstances where there wasn't really enough work. And it kind of works out better for all of us. Like, just the practical reality of like having salaried employees in video production is kind of challenging because money is only coming in when you have a project. Right. And when the project's done, there's no more money. So if we were selling a product to a customer base, we might have like a more consistent stream of revenue coming in. But I think it was ultimately better. Like, now we work with 360 Labs a lot as contractors working together. And it's just like, when there's a job, we assemble, you know, we work with them really quite a lot. But this also allows us to pursue other areas that maybe they wouldn't go into. And that's kind of better for where we want to take it, because we both, Forrest and I, have a background in traditional video production. And so we don't really have all our eggs in one basket, which is nice. I like that.
You don't have
freedom
to be like pigeonholed into
just one thing.
That thing. And both of you are capable of doing so much shit. Like, you can film, or you can edit, or direct.
Yes, or produce. I mean, I wouldn't want to, like, I don't want to take away that, like, each one of those are specialty skill sets, and maybe in an ideal world you just get to focus on one so you can be really good at that one thing. Yeah. But we're living in a new era, you know. I think everybody's realizing, like, we all have to be a little bit of a Jack or Jill of all trades in a certain respect.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons that come with that. But I do think having the freedom to pursue projects that I'm really interested in is one of the benefits of having our company the way that it is. And we can lead it the way we want to. And we can, you know, we learn a lot along the way. We're still learning a lot about what works and what we want to get into. And, you know, and there's so much, I would say, you know, when you need to make money and you need to pay your salary, that's like one consideration. And then there's another consideration of like, oh, I want to make something really artful and I want to feel creatively satisfied. Sometimes those things are totally you know, they don't go together.
Yeah.
And when they do go together, what a joy. But that's not all the time. So there is sort of that aspect of like, sometimes I wonder like, oh gosh, would things have been like, am I doing this the right way? Like, would it have been better to just only, like, making a living in a creative industry is pretty hard. And I do think it's a privilege to get to work in a creative industry and make a living from it. So you just have to stay really sharp. And if you want to have the gratification of making really cool stuff, you're going to have to put in your time to work on things that are less interesting.
Yeah.
And just be ready when that great opportunity comes up for something you're super passionate about. And that's also kind of what keeps me going, is like when we have slow times, then we can work, you know, it's not necessarily good that business is slow, but we're like, well, it's a little bit slow right now. Let's work on a passion project. And you never know where that can go. That might lead to something that is paid one day.
Yeah.
So there's always, and then, you know, in the slow periods, like writing grant proposals and applying for things, we do a lot of that too.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just applied for a couple things I'm really excited about. Fingers crossed that maybe spring of 2025, we get to teach an interactive workshop about making films for domes, for planetariums. Because that's another thing we get to do with the 360 side of it, is like, well, with a little bit of editing, you can take what you filmed with the 360 camera and put it in a planetarium, which is so cool. It's like this massive screen to play with. It's really wild. So fingers crossed we get to do that. We're just always like doing different things, and
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the job we have.
What
Forrest and I.
do you think has attributed to your work ethic? Because that's obviously like important to, like you're saying, being a go-getter, or just constantly like evolving and like finding new things to throw yourself into, or new things to like learn along the way.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, sometimes I think about, well, what's the alternative? Would the alternative be that you work for somebody else and you don't get to choose what you work on, and they could fire you at any time?
Yeah.
Well, that sounds kind of awful.
Agreed.
So it's like, well, I'd much rather, you know, carve my own path.
Yeah.
It's really, it's like such a, I think, yeah, some of that would just come from like a perspective of like, wow, anything other than this would come with a lot of limitations and potential drawbacks. And I don't want that. So I better keep sharp, you know, and keep being able to do this. It's fun, so that doesn't hurt. And I do think there's a lot of instant gratification of working in media, because maybe not instant, but that moment when people watch the thing you made is so awesome. It gives you fuel to get through other difficult times. And God, like I'm thinking about the screening we did at Sandwich. That was so
One of the most fun nights of my year.
Yeah, same. That was so cool. Like that's what's so, it kind of makes like whatever hard work has to come prior to that moment, it's like you have a destination. You have an end goal. You wanted to make something and you wanted people to see it, and you want people to feel some kind of way when they watch it. So that is just a lot of fuel to have the work ethic that you need to get stuff done. And probably the biggest part of my work ethic is having a great business partner. My God, I don't have to do that alone. I get to do that with Forrest, who's awesome, so creative, so talented. And that, if I think about where I started and where I am now, that's got to be the best thing. I don't do this alone.
Yeah.
I have a teammate, and maybe increasingly we'll have more people that we get to work with, like you and Jim and Nick, and we get to have like our teams for different projects. Like, I don't want to do this alone.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Kind of goes back to the collaboration thing we were talking about earlier, of just like having another person.
It's so awesome because you don't have to, you know, my well of creativity is limited, right? And it's just wonderful to work with other artists.
Yeah.
Because they bring all of their creativity to the table. And then Forrest and I, it's like every day we'll have a conversation about a project where, because we get to talk it out, like there's my idea, there's his idea, and then we're like, oh, what if we did this? Like the other day we were working on a VR app about a cannabis farm, and we're like, you know what? This is about cannabis. We can be weird if we want to be.
It can be fun.
We can be fun. And so we're like, what if we, instead of having like the door into the facility where they dry all the cannabis, what if instead of just having like a boring old arrow to take you into the facility, what if we make like a magical door, and it's filled with it's filled with like cannabis leaves.
Yeah.
And when your cursor rolls over it, it's like, so we did that. And we
That's
had a lot
awesome.
of fun with it. And that was just an idea that we could talk about. Like, there's just so many things like that. We also both have ideas. I would say I have bad ideas that then once I have someone like Forrest to talk to about it, it's like, oh, no, that would have been bad. Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
So nice to just be able to talk through it.
Yeah, I think it's just also rad to have somebody else in the room to like bring out the things that you don't see also, or
Yeah.
just like maybe something you're not like stoked about and someone else is like, no, leave that in.
Yeah,
Like,
you need that.
Like, and having those people to push back against you a little bit, like for specifically thinking about the Tuna Boy thing, for some reason, I was like not super hyped about the beginning when the mayo container like farts pretty much, like, and like I don't know, there was just like something about it to me where I was just like, this
like,
feels fucking hacky or something,
juvenile,
you know,
like little fart sound.
And I think both of you were just like, no,
Like, we need that fart sound.
that has to be in there. And I was just like, all right, well, I'm gonna just trust you guys. And every time like I show it to somebody, or that like the night that we showed it at Sandwich, like it gets such a response from the like, and it's so early on in the thing, and like maybe cuts some of the seriousness out of it, which I think is like really nice too. And it's just like, it does capture like a cool spirit, and it's like something, if you guys were like, all right, go ahead and like you can make whatever edits you want, like I probably would have taken it out because
the fart
like I
sound.
couldn't see past.
Well, you did ask to remove it, I remember.
Yeah. And I'm
then 'cause
thankful that like other people like yourself were just like, no, we're not taking that out. Not negotiable.
Where's my ethics now? What I did was I lowered the fart sound by like 6 decibels.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, it doesn't have to be as loud.
And now I don't hate it.
You don't hate it.
Like, you know, like I see where it adds value.
Thank you
and
for
I think
seeing
that.
that.
You do need other people in the room for like those things to happen.
It's true. I mean, I'm so happy thanks for being cool with the fart sound, because I really enjoy it. And it's so fun to like have ridiculous moments of absurdity in things. That's just what I like.
Yeah.
You know, and but to a degree.
It
you
fit
don't
the
wanna
spirit of the thing.
Yeah, if it was like every other interview soundbite or fart noise, like,
Yeah,
that's too
for sure.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did kind of, it helps at the beginning. It sets a little bit of a tone.
Yeah.
We don't take ourselves too seriously around here. And who hasn't had that awful moment of trying to get some mayonnaise out or
Yes.
ketchup?
Yes.
And it's like, oh no.
Yeah. Well,
It
I
happens.
was definitely from the jump very like struck by your vision
Why, thank you.
for things.
Thank you. It's a collective vision, I think, that we all share.
Yeah, for sure. But like, where do you think you like developed your vision for editing specifically? Is it just like getting your reps in,
Definitely.
but like, and like carving out your own style along the way?
Oh, yeah. Definitely partly getting your reps in, I think. I know that's true because some of the first things I edited, I spent hours and hours and hours and hours on them. And when I look back at those projects, I'm like, wow, I really fussed over the most minute details that I don't think really added much, and I got lost in the weeds. I needed to have more things in my sort of like, I needed to experience editing more things to get less precious about certain cuts that only I could appreciate or notice. It was sort of like when you learn how to do something, you're so excited about doing it that you're like, yeah, look at me. Look, I'm editing this. And then you realize like, well, this is a story about urban goats. Like, do I really need the most cinematic whatever? No, this is just about the goats, the Belmont goats here. And like, let's just show how cool, thinking of one video I did in particular, let's just show like the people are as interesting as the goats, the people who take care of these goats and love them and like cuddle them. Like, You have to just, so getting the reps in is important. And I think the more material you're exposed to, the more you have to, like, I had to, like, develop my sense of wonder and curiosity about all the material that I'm getting to edit and be really honest and true about that, and, like, let any ego I have about, well, I want to show I'm such a good editor, like, that doesn't serve the work that you're editing. So try to get that out of the way. But that's pretty hard when you're first starting, and especially for me, because I felt like I had a lot to prove and I wanted people to want me to be their editor.
Right.
So I really felt like I had so much pressure, and it was so helpful to just get a few things done, to be like, no, look, I can do this. So sort of that imposter syndrome feeling goes away a little bit when you get to work on more things. And then as in terms of, like, figuring out maybe a style that I like, I have to also think about, what do I like to watch and what do I appreciate about the things that I watch. And then it is sort of, again, that back and forth of, like, what's gratifying for me to do as the editor because it feels good when I'm working on it. And does that really make any sense for how it feels to watch it? Because if it doesn't, let's just get rid of all that.
Yeah.
Like, respect the viewer. So, and I think I'm definitely still trying to figure out my style. I'm definitely still working on that. And that's what's really fun about art, is that you always get to challenge yourself, try new things. And I think the only thing I can say for sure about my editing style is I like to find the humor, and I like to let my inner curiosity for the material really guide my choices. And I love people, and I'm really interested in people. And I really want to know the subjects as best as I can from the footage I have in front of me. And I want to just, I feel like I'm sort of like a cheerleader. Like, I want to show them off in a good way.
Yeah.
That's true for them. I want to find little pieces of the footage that maybe they don't even realize are in there that show how great they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I probably could never edit, like, investigative journalism stuff anymore, because I'd be like, oh, I have to make them look bad. And I wouldn't want to do that. So getting the reps in, as you said, is so important, though. It's really important. I think a lot of artists suffer from perfectionism, imposter syndrome, comparing our work to other people's, and it can really make you feel so down on yourself. I'll regularly go back and watch some of my older work, and the relationship I have to it now is so different than at the time when I would be so harsh on myself.
Yeah.
Oh, this sucked. Like, I sent you a link to a very short video I made about Tanari Wen for KMHD Jazz. And I remember at the time when I was editing it, I had all kinds of thoughts about, oh, I should have gotten more cool angles of this and la la la. And then I was just watching it back yesterday, and I was like, wow, this has over 70,000 views. This is cool. It's cool because it's like you're up close and personal to these amazing artists, and you just kind of get to see, like, the way they pluck the strings of the bass, and, like, they're just so cool, those guys. And like, wow, it's just like it doesn't need, like, I think half the time it's just sort of realizing, like, the material is just really great, so just let it shine.
Yeah.
You don't have to put too much extra fuss on it for it to be good. But there is the touch of a good editor is that you don't necessarily feel that it's been that edited.
Right.
So there's also that. Oh my God. If you're on Reddit and you ever go into the editing, like film editing subreddit, every once in a while someone will post something and they'll be like, critique my work. And God, they're harsh on there and just ripping into people. And like, you'll see people who are great technical editors, but like the other day someone posted something and it was like this really cool effects trying to show off a construction company or like a contractor. So they're like on ladders and they're replacing the roof of a house, but you don't even notice their work because of all the weird editing effects that they added, which are super cool. Like visually it looks really cool, but all of us were just panning it in the comments. We're like, what were you editing this for? Like, this is showing off you. It doesn't show off
just flexing skills.
Yeah. Like, if the goal is to get them hired to do contracting work, I don't even remember what the before and after was. So you failed at that.
Does your approach have to be different, or does it feel different when you go into something that maybe you weren't like a part of from the beginning? Like the Tuna Boy thing.
Yeah.
You kind of like went into that after everything was filmed.
Yeah.
Opposed to like if we do another episode,
I'll be part of.
we've like done this pre-production meeting or whatever, and you like, you know what we're trying to accomplish
Yes.
beforehand. So like, is that always a different challenge when you're
It
just
is.
jumping into something or throwing something like, hey, I want you to edit this?
It's honestly so much better not to know about all the blood, sweat, and tears and just get the footage.
Okay.
It's so much better because you just get to see what's actually there. And you're
Yeah.
not biased by like, well, it took a lot of effort to coordinate that, so we better use a lot of it. You just use what is good.
Yeah.
So sometimes what we'll do is, actually a lot of times now what we do is Forrest will do the project management and organization, which is such a blessing, synchronizing everything, getting it, just perfectly ready for me to then go in and edit it. What a dream. I never could have imagined when I first started that anyone
You
would
just
do that
plug
for
and
me.
play.
Yeah.
Not have to worry about all the, just
That's
the bummer stuff.
So I really appreciate him for that. It might not always work that he has the time to do that for me. I can do it if I have to, but wow, what a luxury for me to be like, all right, let me roll up my sleeves
Yeah.
and what's the material?
Yeah.
That's an amazing, amazing gift. So it's much better to not be involved. However, we all wear many hats,
Yeah.
and I know as an editor, like what kind of shots are going to be super fruitful for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain shots that it's like, if you don't get them for me at the time, I'm going to be wishing I had them. So, I'm excited to be more maybe a part of producing the Sebastiano's one, because if there's certain things I'm like, oh gosh, it'd be really nice to just have a few shots of the owners working without them talking,
Yeah.
because then it'll be easier to put your interview audio bed underneath it.
Right.
Like I can just help make sure that we get that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And I need a lot of variety.
Yeah.
Give us as editors as much variety as you can. And we also need and are kind of desperate for like shots where not every shot needs to be like short, quick, and snappy.
Yeah.
And you guys did great for the first Tuna Boy. Like I had everything I needed, but it's just nice like going into the second one, like thinking more about like, oh yeah, let's just get, the dough on the cutting board, the cans of tuna up
Yeah.
here. Just give me a lot of stuff. And then there's some stuff that you can't get that is just going to be archival of the subjects. That
For
will
sure.
be really helpful too. Like with Mel's episode, there's just so many cool Instagram videos that Sandwich has made that just show the vibe of Sandwich. And it's like, they're there, when like Mel's like dancing with the customers. It's like, that's just a video they already have that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like we should show that.
Repurposing those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you did like such a brilliant job of like even the compilation that you made of like my
Of
prior
you.
Tuna Boy,
Yes.
just like my Instagram videos that
Had to
like
do that.
kind of started the thing. Like I thought like provided so much cool context, and I like would have not had the idea to like figure out how to like work those in the way you did.
That was important. I felt like I need to give the viewer the experience of what it's like to scroll through the Tuna Boy Instagram and see all the
Yeah.
different moments. And like, I love the, spotted a caper.
Yeah. It was very cool.
The kayak one is so great. You're like, oh, the sandwiches are a little soggy. I was like, oh, this is so wonderful. Of course they're a little soggy. And you're like, it's because we're kayaking.
Well, Rachel, I feel like I could talk to you for hours
Same.
about all of these things, but we both have places to go.
You have a tattoo to get.
I have some tattoos to get.
Tattoos plural? Woo. Okay, we better wrap this
We'll
up.
see how it goes.
Wow. Is one of them a tuna? Oh, really?
It is. I'm not sure what my tattoo artist Laura over at Icon has quite. I'll be surprised when I get there. I am either getting a tuna can if it can be portrayed correctly. That's like
Okay.
maybe could be difficult to translate in a tattoo.
Yeah.
Like I've seen cans of sardines that look really cool because like sardines are a little more.
It's like a rectangle
They have more
can.
character. Also, like being open,
Yeah,
like
it's like-
when you open a can of sardines, like I think you can kind of like see them more clearly, like
Yeah.
individually. But I did find a cool reference photo, so it's possible that I'm getting a tuna can. At the very least, I am getting a tuna tattooed today.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is so
And I'm
great.
getting one other tattoo, but
Please document the process.
Damn,
Can
I didn't
you?
even think about like how fun that would have been.
Just
to,
like a few. Oh,
I'll try.
just as much as
I'll
you
see
can
what I
with your
can.
phone. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. All right.
Just
I'll do
it
my
needs
best.
to exist.
Damn, you're right.
Even
Fuck,
just
I
like a
didn't think
couple,
about
like,
that.
all right, I'm about to get the tattoo,
Yeah.
and then afterwards,
Yeah.
please.
All right. All right. I'll try to do my best to do that. But
Oh my God, this
yeah.
is great.
it is great.
Yay!
Also very nice to like hear about your, or at least part of your journey.
Thank you.
And get to know you more through this conversation.
Thank
I've
you so much for having me.
very much enjoyed getting to spend time with you, like making the Tuna Boy stuff. It's been awesome to know you, Rachel.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah,
One
thanks
of the
for being
highlights.
a part of the thing. You know,
Thank you so much. It's definitely a highlight of 2024 for me to work on Tuna Boy,
hell yeah,
and I'm very
that's
excited
so sick.
for all we're gonna keep doing.
Me too. I'll put all the links in the episode notes so people can keep up with you and the
Cool.
Hungry Mantis production squad.
Why, thank you.
And everything you guys are doing over there. Also, Rachel, I think that as far as a homemade tuna sandwich, you made me the best one all year.
Oh my God!
That was very lights out. Like,
Wow.
Like when when the Tuna Boy pop-up happens,
Oh my God!
there will be elements of your sandwich incorporated.
Hell fucking yeah! That was
MSG.
Marley's tuna. MSG. Yes.
That's what. Yeah.
And the Marley caught tuna. My friend Marley.
I still have the cans of tuna right there. I haven't dug into them yet.
When you do,
Yeah.
please record it.
I will.
Or maybe we can record it together.
That'd be fun.
She catches the tuna herself. It's so freaking
Incredible.
cool. Well, thank you for the compliment on the homemade tuna sandwich.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's, oh my God. That makes me so happy. And yeah, secret ingredient MSG plus fresh caught tuna from Marley. So
Rachel, we end every episode of the podcast with the guest saying the tagline for the show, which is "It's a program." It means nothing. It's just the way my grandfather says program. He always says program for some reason, and it's the one time I'll ask you to look into the camera there, and you can deliver your "It's a program" however you would like to.
well, it's a program.
She nailed it, everybody. That's Rachel. I guess for now, usually I play the episode out with music, and
Ooh.
I'm not really sure what that looks
Maybe a
like
spin
for.
itch.
Oh, a little spinach jam?
That'd be cool.
Yeah, spinach, one of my favorite local producers, beat makers, and past guest of the podcast. He's been on a couple times. Hoping to bring him back real soon, but he contributed some music to the Tuna Boy episode. So I do think that would be appropriate. This is something probably off of his Compostables instrumentals, and you can check those out. Wherever you listen to music, I'll put that link in the episode notes as well. And that's the Jelly Jams, and we will catch you on the flip side, Portland, or wherever you are listening from. We did it!